Hey, does it ever bother you that some people seem to be that little bit luckier, just kind of have that little edge, be one step ahead of you some of the time? It certainly bothers me, but occasionally I get to be that person. And what I want to share with you today is how I managed to be that person and what I think I did when it happened. So stick around. Hey, welcome to Lead Loud. My name is Richard Mulholland. I'm the founder and chief evangelist of presentation powerhouse Missing Link. Now, one of the things I'm the most proud of that we've done at Missing Link is the creation of our Story to Stage speaker mentorship program, where we work with professional speakers trying to get ahead and book more gigs. But booking more gigs is one thing. That's not their main challenge. One of the main challenges they have, and they come to me and say is, Rich, hey, how did you get your first gig? Because that first gig is really, really troublesome. So I want to share with you a story that kind of got me there. Years ago, I was lucky enough to work with a gentleman by the name of Eric Brown. This is Eric. My first book, Boredom Stare, is dedicated to him. And sadly, but with honor, I was one of the pallbearers at his funeral in 2021. And when we were working with Eric, I just started. I'd never done a speaking gig in my life, but I was working with him on the strategy of one of his conferences that was coming up. I, had written a strategy, but I'd wanted to do this version of this talk. It was by Seth Godin. It was about Seth Godin's Purple Cow book. And I'd wanted to do a talk on that topic to his team of business bankers. So I remember sitting in the room this day and I just kind of wrote myself in as the keynote speaker. And I was actually just hired to organize the event, for the structural parts of the event for the day. So he kind of goes through and he's looking, he's getting to my bed and he's like, oh my goodness, what's he going to say? And he comes down to it and he's kind of got up the call sheet. He says, right, okay, next on the agenda, Richard, you have said that you're speaking about Purple Cow. What's that about? And I had to say, well, Eric, what it's about this book by Seth Godin and it's about being remarkable. And I think it could be really be helpful for the bankers. So he's like, cool, thanks. That sounds good. Okay, how long do you need? And I told him and he was like, cool. And that was it. And away I went. And that first gig got me booked with a second gig. And it was one of the best times I had that, then things got going. I always think to myself, if it wasn't for Eric, nothing, this never would have happened. I'm incredibly appreciative of the man. But I realized that the real thing was me not doing the one thing that everybody else does. And it's the one thing that I get quite frustrated with a lot of the speakers, or in fact, people I work with in general. And that is, you have to stop waiting for permission. I feel that it's quite atrocious. I live in a world where it has to be said that, before you go and stop, when I say stop asking for permission or waiting for permission, obviously, I mean in the business case. Now, I was reading a book by a guy called Alex Banayan, and it's called The Third Door. And if you haven't read it, this video is really about you checking that out. It's about the idea that there's always kind of two doors that people see, the front door and the back door. But most people don't get access to the front door, and the back door is kind of hard to get inside. The third door, that door you make yourself when you don't ask for permission, when you kind of climb in the window, is the one that you'll be successful. And that's how I booked my first speaking gig. I just kind of decided I wasn't going to wait for permission. I was chatting to my son the other day, and he was helping us with rebuilding our Boredom Stairs program, and he was kind of helping us with the post-it notes and things. He's 19 years old, and we were going away for lunch. We were going to go out for lunch. It was myself, Kevin, and Josh from Missing Link, and Callum. My wife, Jazz, saw Cal going to the room, and she said, what are you doing? He said, well, they're going to lunch. She said, why aren't you going with them? I said, well, I didn't know if I was allowed to go with them. I'm just helping. And she's like, don't be stupid, go. And he just walks in, came to lunch with us, and we spoke about ideas, and he engaged, and he chatted, and it was fantastic. The problem was that he was waiting for permission. He was waiting to be invited, but you have to invite yourself. When I was at Gearhouse years ago, my boss, I'd started this tiny little division. I even was the only one who called it a division, PSL, Conference Services. My boss offer had put up a meeting request on the front door. It was still, a piece of paper on the door. All managers meeting. And I was like, well, I have a department. And I remember walking into all managers meeting, and one of the guys who ran the sound department said, hey, what's Mulholland doing here? And I was like 21 at the time. And he was like, I said, well, actually, and the manager of PSL Conference Services. And he was starting to laugh, and off I said, leave him be, let him stay. And that was it. I didn't wait for permission. I just kind of worked my way in. And there's always an opportunity to do that. If you're working for a company, I can promise you, if you're working for an entrepreneur especially, they're looking for people that are not asking for permission, that are putting their hand up. Years ago, I remember a blogger came to me, a guy by the name of Mike Stopforth. I always refer to this story, Stopforth's Law. And Stopforth's Law states, in any area that lacks an expert, whoever puts their hand up first becomes it. And the story was that Mike had wanted to write, we were all blogging, and Mike had wanted to write a blog or a blog about blogs and do it for business. And, how could businesses grow into this space? And we were all quite big bloggers. And he was this young guy and, coming to us and saying, we should take this seriously. We should start a company that does this. And none of us did it. So he said, you know what, I'll do it myself. And he was selling like cars, 4x4s at the time or something like that. And so he started a business that ended up selling for like a fortune. And it was because he put up his hand. It was an area that lacked an expert and he didn't have permission to do it, but neither did anybody else. So he stepped in. And that's the call to action I want to say to you today. You got to put your hand up sometime. You got to put your hand up and actually decide that you are an option. They can still say no. It doesn't matter. But if you don't put up your hand, they're looking at the available options that are there. And right now there is something. There's a promotion, there's a job, there's a speaking gig. Again, even inside your company, if you want to be a speaker, if you want to be the person that gets out there to do the big talks at the big conferences, go to your boss today and say to them, hey, I read this great new book, The Third Door, about how we can actually get into customers. I would like to come and do a summary talk to the team as a lunch and learn. Could I do that? They will say yes. No one is ever going to say, no, we don't want to learn more. So put your hand up, make yourself an option, right? And stop waiting for permission. That's it for me. This sounds like a bit of a lecture. It didn't mean to be, but it's supposed to be provoking you to making yourself that option. Until next time, lead loud.